fourth session of our Take Back the Internet challenge with Pocketnet. The challenge was an amazing success, I think, by all measures. Gotten tremendous amount of feedback, thanking us for putting in the time. Obviously, you have to take time away from other responsibilities on Pocketnet, and specifically, you met some developers who are working on this stuff. I think we showed a lot about the technology underlying the Pocketnet. We're gonna release those recordings eventually, but I'm really thankful for all of you attending. And this last session will be very interesting. It's gonna be slightly different. We're gonna start in just a minute, but just to recap, as people are joining, we had a 4-session challenge for those who didn't attend every session. We will send the recordings out for those that attend, and eventually we'll release them for everybody, but that's later. The first session we had was specifically about Pocketnet as a platform, right? We focused on the need for Pocketnet. Why does it need to exist? Why couldn't we just build, another centralized platform, but, let's say with good people? So I tried to, as somebody who thought deeply about these issues, I tried to explain to you that it's not about personality so much. That if you're using or not using a platform because you like or don't like a personality associated with the platform, that's the wrong way to go, because ultimately people change, people can be replaced. You really need to look at the underlying structure. What are we after today, right? We are after a platform that is decentralized to the maximum degree possible, where users, people who have invested time in a platform, have a say, which is not the same as with Facebook, right? At some point, a lot of people invested a lot of time into Facebook and into YouTube. Many bloggers invested many years producing free content for YouTube, basically helping them get rich, only to see them turn around and cut them off. And so what can we do to prevent that from happening? Because there's a lot of people ask us, well, what about this platform or that platform? They seem to be nice. They seem to be not censoring people and so on and so forth. But again, it's all, you should look at it through time. Initially, Facebook was also for freedom, believe it or not. Twitter, as late as 5 years ago, they were saying we'll never censor, right? And maybe they were sincere in that at that time, but it's just that that's not the way a corporate world works. I think that I'm a free market person. I think that the free market does solve a lot of problems, but today's corporations, that has nothing to do with the free market. It has nothing to do with the market economy. And in the first session, I explained to you that the reason we got to this place is partly because of some unique technological developments that came together with the actually unprecedented infusion of liquidity. So Fed was pumping in very easy liquidity, and those giant companies, in the absence of antitrust, armed with this new technology and unlimited money, were able to just take over the market. And just yesterday, we heard news that supposedly they're going to look at antitrust against Google and so on. But it really doesn't matter at this point. Even if they're not going to break them up, that's for sure. But even if they do some of that, that no longer matters, because there's no longer an entry into that world, into that corporate world, because they'll be bought up. These entities, even if you break up Google into 5 entities, they'll still be huge enough to gobble up and kill any innovation. That is why Pocketnet is decentralized. And let's go back to that meaning. What does it mean, decentralized? Well, first of all, I think that we need to look at Bitcoin. When Bitcoin is the model. It's our model for how to build things. Why? Well, it's because Bitcoin created this solution for social consensus of equal players. Previously, whenever you could have different parties agree to something, let's say the 50 of us on the call or whatever, we agree on something, but we don't know each other. In order to keep that consensus, you must have a central party that will enforce that consensus. That was always like that. But the biggest innovation from Satoshi in the Bitcoin was that he solved the problem how people can agree on certain things in a decentralized way and enforce that agreement without having a central party. He also solved the problem of incentivizing, because in decentralized world, we talked about tragedy of the commons. When people build decentralized things out of goodness of their heart, eventually there's going to be more takers than givers. People will abuse the services, will not provide enough, and it goes into disrepair. So Bitcoin solves that too, because it provides an internal token, an ability for people to earn. This is what Pocketcoin is. And the Pocketcoin is not just, there are platforms out there who are built as centralized platforms, but they threw together some ERC20 token or something, and they call themselves blockchain social media. But that is not true. A decentralized blockchain platform is the one that follows the Bitcoin model, where the computers running the network can all verify things, and in some sense they're equal. Of course, some have more hashing power, and Pocketcoin is proof of stake. Some have more Pocketcoin, but in reality, anybody can come in and play a role in the system and verify. Same thing with users. Users of Pocketnet or social network, they can't. Developers cannot do anything. There's not a central point of power that can ban them or anything. And if developers do ever do something like that, this is open source, completely open source. People could fork it. In fact, one of the goals of Pocketnet, our roadmap, is to enable people to easily create new versions of Pocketnet, meaning that you can take the Pocketnet blockchain and create different front ends. Excuse me. You can create different front end applications. You can also take the blockchain and create different versions of the blockchain and talk to the front end. So everybody has a chance to participate and play a role in the governance of the platform nonetheless, which is kind of completely opposite of Twitter. Let me read some comments. Yeah, sounds good. Pocketnet gives everybody a chance to be a part of the future. You don't have to be rich. Absolutely. I mean, if you use, if you work enough on Pocketnet, it goes big, maybe you can make some money too. But ultimately, it's the idea that anybody can come in. Okay. Second session was about the video. Video platform is released. Live streaming is released. We're starting to have bloggers join. You can see we have some really cool videos. The third session was about peer-to-peer chat. We are close to releasing that. It's it's a very complex thing, but we're releasing a peer-to-peer encrypted chat, meaning that if you have a one-on-one conversation, it's encrypted at a point on the device where you're writing it and decrypted by the other person. And we're using Pocketnet blockchain as a go-between layer. We're going to send you a video on that. Today, we'll talk about a very important topic, something that is crucial, not as, exciting in terms of technology as peer-to-peer chat, but it's crucial. It's how bloggers make money on Pocketnet, because there's we evolved, Pocketnet team, and there's a bunch of people around the world. I'm just one person who, talks about it, and I invented the thing, but most of the actual people working on it, every day they get questions about, how exactly do you plan to allow bloggers to make money? Because ultimately that's what needs to be done. You have to have bloggers earn the coins. We recently, for video, we announced a program where Pocketnet developers and some other people who were running early nodes are giving away Pocketcoin to to video bloggers. If they watch if they have 10,000 views on a video, they get $1,000 equivalent in a Pocketcoin. I think that's an amazing offer. If you have bloggers, if you blog yourself, bring them to the platform. There are very few places, if any, where they can earn that much. But that's a program, that's an incentive program. But we're going to talk about something more long-term. And let me share my slides. We're going to talk about a couple of things that are more long-term. So we're going to talk about one concept that's known as NFT. And I will warn you that a lot of people don't know this, and some people that know it, many people are quite negative on it because it is a very hyped up concept, and it seems to be quite loose. When I first heard of it, I thought that, the world has gone mad, and I can't prevent the world from going mad, but I can, just watch from the sidelines. And I think in the original inception of the NFT, there's a lot of craziness. But as we thought about it, we figured out a way to make that NFT concept apply to our bloggers. Okay, well, let me take a quick round of questions. Can you write in chat right now if you know what NFT is? You can just write a plus or yes or no. If you don't know it, please let me know too. I just want to understand kind of the audience if you at least heard of what NFT is. Non-fungible token. Okay, So far, yes, okay, Matt, you know, David knows. So some people don't know what it is. Many people do. That's so okay. I will explain it. I will explain it because I think it's going to be helpful, even for those that do know it. We're going to quickly go in depth. So I'm going to start with basic explanation, but quickly go in depth. So probably like 60% heard of it. So NFT, if we don't talk about Pocketnet or this presentation, it is a term that is recently came into existence. It's translated or abbreviated as non-fungible token. Non-fungible token. So token is like a cryptocurrency or crypto token, like Pocketcoin is a token, right? Pocketcoin is a token on a Pocketnet blockchain. You can earn it, you can trade it, you can sell it, buy it, and so on. But it is a fungible token. In fact, it can be divisible all the way. You know, there are 10 to the 8th parts of a pocket coin, just like a Bitcoin. Non-fungible token means that we create something on the blockchain that's sort of indivisible, right? That's indivisible. It's like a thing. It's like a difference between a US dollar and let me think what's divisible, like kind of like a computer, right? You can't sell half a computer. I mean, you could technically, but it's worthless and it's pointless. So, but the dollar you can divide into many pieces. So non-fungible, it just means that it's a single thing, right? It's a single item that is sold like a good, right? And on Ethereum right now, most of it is on the Ethereum blockchain, some are on the other blockchains, but what it's doing is using crypto algorithms to create a transaction on the blockchain. In that transaction, something is stored, usually some text, like you can see on the screen here. This is an example of an NFT. You see description. We present this original remastered Grumpy Cat photographic image. Blah, 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 blah. You know, whatever, it's description. There's a name, Grumpy Cat, and there's a URL, IPFS, you know, :/ and so on. So this is what an NFT is. And people pay a lot of money for these. You know, there has been some that were sold for millions of dollars. Most are not, but still, it's a very interesting phenomenon. Why do people do it, right? But at the core is that it's a transaction on a blockchain that gives you this right to use this NFT. Then you can sell this NFT on that blockchain, right? Remember, it's all within the blockchain. Outside of that blockchain, it has no bearing. You didn't really buy any copyright. You bought nothing. You bought just something on the blockchain, this transaction. So nobody on the blockchain can use that very thing. Usually it's an image, sometimes it's a text, and you can trade it. You can also get royalties from it. So you can program it, for example, that you're going to rent it out to people, right? So that's the idea behind NFT. It's very simple. It's some transaction on the blockchain that contains some work of art, presumably, or something interesting that you can claim ownership and then you can rent or sell to other people. So it's like this virtual real estate. In some sense, you can think of it as like buying a domain. You know, people bought domains like cars.com, right? It was a very expensive domain. At some point, people said, well, it's crazy. Why would you buy cars.com? But eventually, it is worth a lot of money. It's not quite the same with blockchains because blockchains are very fragmented. So there are quite a few of them. But the idea with non-fungible token is that it's this thing that you put on the blockchain. Again, it has a name, it has a description, it has a URL, okay? It's simply some metadata attached to a blockchain transaction, right? We can see the work of art here. Notice that the link says IPFS. Who knows about IPFS? Can I get some like yes, no in the chat? Do you know about IPFS? Do you know what it is? No? Okay, many people don't know it. So IPFS is abbreviated Interplanetary File System. So very geeky name. Essentially, it's an attempt to create a decentralized storage mechanism. So it's kind of like torrent, but for storage. So you put an image there. Essentially, this transaction on Ethereum proves that you own this, whatever's at this URL, IPFS, blah, blah, and so you see nft.jpg. So whatever is at that URL, your transaction proves it. And there are a number of problems with this. And I will first let me tell you what I think. There are many problems with NFTs currently, but then I will explain how we can change them and actually benefit the bloggers on Pocketnet. So let me go to the next slide. Oops. So first problem that people encounter is that, remember that IPFS URL, IPFS colon, / and so on. You're basically paying, let's say you paid $1 million for it. You're paying $1 million, and for a little thing on the Ethereum blockchain that says, hey, I own whatever's that URL, but URLs go bad. Specifically, IPFS URLs go bad over time. In fact, it's an interesting story. When we were thinking of Pocketnet, like years ago, 3 years ago, we saw the censorship coming. We knew that it was going to be big, so we put in all this work. We were going to use IPFS. That was our first proxy for storage of everything. The problem with IPFS is that you don't control the links. They can go bad. And when they go bad, right, imagine somebody makes a great post, it's very popular, and then link goes bad. I mean, the file's not there. So you have to actually maintain them on IPFS. You have to then put up your own storage and maintain it, or you have to pay some people. In fact, there were many NFTs. There's this quote, there's a team called Check My NFT, and they've been looking inside of these IPFS addresses, and they found files that just don't work. So they found $1 million NFTs, and they were non-existent. Somebody paid money. They don't check it every day. But until that team told them, you know what, that URL is broken, and you get 404, right? That's a very, very expensive 404 error. So right away, you have something in the blockchain, you have a file somewhere, that already is a little bit shady to me. Well, with Pocketnet, when I was describing an NFT to you, if those that have been around Pocketnet for a little bit should have understood that it's actually very similar to a Pocketnet transaction, because what Pocketnet transaction really is some data, right? Some data on the blockchain, and that data is stored. So we have a blockchain transaction in a blockchain, but there's some accompanying data. There is text, that goes somewhere, and it goes right into the Pocketnet node. So we built IPFS within Pocketnet from day one. We did it for completely other reasons. We weren't thinking of NFTs, and that's not where we were going with this, but that is how it was designed. And when we realized that NFT is just repurposing of that concept, in fact, we already have the NFT framework. You can think of any post in Pocketnet as an NFT, really. It's just NFTs that are not traded. We don't really trade posts, but we will. I'll explain how that fits in. But posts are not tradable right now, but there are NFTs. Any post you made on Pocketnet is an NFT. By the way, you can feel free to ask questions. I'll get to them. Later. So Pocketnet transaction is very similar to what you saw on the previous slide. It's very similar to this, a description, and and the name and so on. So we don't need to rely to IPFS. It's actually maintained by our nodes. Let's go to the next slide. So the other thing that we should consider is that when you're using an Ethereum blockchain, it is very, very expensive. Right now, just to sell an NFT, you might be paying $20 just for the transaction fee. It has nothing to do with an NFT. So think about this. Everybody's trying to use one blockchain, and that, by the way, is incidentally why I don't believe is Ethereum is going to be a world's computer as they build it. That is just impossible. No matter how much they increase their throughput, they're not going to, within what they can possibly do, they're not going to be able to accommodate all users. Even one app could actually bring down the whole Ethereum blockchain. Now imagine if there are hundreds or thousands of apps. It is just impossible. That's another reason why we built our own blockchain. If we relied on somebody else's blockchain like Ethereum, first of all, we have to do a lot of jumping around to make sure that it works with Ethereum. Why? If we can build it custom. The other thing is every transaction would be expensive. Imagine if you had to create a Pocketnet post and you had to pay $20 to do it. I mean, right now, yesterday we had 12,000 transactions on Pocketnet. I mean, imagine how many transactions we would have. Very, 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 very few. So the issue number one is that they can go bad, right? You see right here. Issue number one is links can go bad in IPFS. In Pocketnet, they will not, because Pocketnet has internal storage. And very soon, we are releasing a new version of the node. That's going to be a momentous day because we worked on it for over a year. We're going to release a new node that is much easier on RAM, that actually uses a more modern database, SQLite, and it was going to be much smoother basically. And at that point, the throughput of the network will just increase. Number two is that it's costly in terms of time and money to use IPFS, and you might have to pay Ethereum gas fees and IPFS Filecoin just to store the thing, your NFT. That's kind of crazy. Okay, so lose connection between NFT and the blockchain. What does that mean? Well, when you bought an Ethereum NFT, like I showed you before, there's not really any proof of what you bought. It's just a URL. Supposedly something could change at that URL. It maybe didn't go broken. It's not broken, but it's switched or something like that. So the point is, there's really, blockchain says something, but then you have to go somewhere else to verify. That's a big problem. Where in Pocketnet, every post you make, it goes into a so-called companion database, we call it, right? So there's blockchain, there's a companion database where all your posts are stored and all this stuff. But the hash of every post goes into the blockchain, so you could always verify. You could always verify what was actually done. So you know that somebody couldn't switch that image or that text. If they did, the hash wouldn't match, right? The hash is just numeric representation of some file. You could create a hash of a video file, of an audio file, of a book. It'll be unique fingerprint. It's like a fingerprint, in this image. So you can always prove what you actually bought, right? And the last problem is no scarcity. That's the problem, right? I don't know if on the right, do you see this image on the right? How many of you know what this is? And how many do you know what it is on the right? Can you write in chat? I do know or don't. This image on the right, this collage from many, many different images. Okay. So we have a few people that do. Yeah, it's been hyped up in the news. Yeah, Beeple, exactly. So this thing is known as a Beeple. It's the NFT that is the most expensive NFT, I think, to date. It's been sold for $59 or $60 million. So imagine that this thing, right, this image is sold for $59 million. Now, I have the same exact image in this presentation. I think it's the same exact resolution. I'm not sure, but I could get the same image. It's openly available. In other words, there's no scarcity or exclusivity in any sense. It's like I put out an image, anybody can download it at the same resolution, same everything. Everybody has access to. I think in the long run, that is not the great way to sell your works. Because that's not how art is valued, right? If anybody could get an exact work of art, the value, I think, would diminish. Yeah, the NFT is hyped up and everything, but I think the fact there's no scarcity or exclusivity really kind of puts the lid on what this can do. It can be freely copied by pretty much anyone. So we created something called Pocketnet exclusive NFT. And somebody wrote, it looks like a cluster of Brazilian houses. Yeah, probably. Yeah, somebody wrote a kryptonite. Exactly. I've copied hundreds of NFTs. Exactly. I mean, the whole point is that they're easy to copy. What we are thinking is we don't want to do NFT, right? We don't want to be selling kitties, or that's not, I mean, somebody wants to do it, fine. It's not prohibited, but that's not kind of our ambition. Our ambition is to allow bloggers escape big tech and be able to support themselves on this platform, the new kind of platform that's decentralized, like Bitcoin. So the Bitcoin of social media. With that, we came up with an idea of exclusive NFT. Here's how it works. And I'm going to wave hands a little bit, then we'll go to slides. But the idea is that when you're selling an NFT, you're not putting a whole work out there. For example, if you're selling an image, you can put together a lower resolution version of the image. You can put out a segment of the image. You can put a video describing, showing how you created it. So there could be lots of different things you could do that show what it is, that show the value, but don't actually display the whole work, so nobody could copy it. And when the auction, so Pocketnet post that creates this NFT, imagine a blogger. This is what we're thinking of. Imagine like a popular blogger that needs to support themselves. They will have many different ways to earn in Pocketnet. That's true. but this is just one more way. Instead of constantly asking for donations, well, donate, donate, donate. I mean, it gets tiresome when people ask for donations all the time, though I think that, if they have no choice, they should do it. But it's better to provide some value. What if this blogger creates some unique piece of content? For example, unique text, unique image, or maybe a short video that nobody else has. For example, this blogger could tell some story that very few people know, but this blogger knows, and it would be interesting for the blogger's readers to learn that story. So you could do that. You could describe the story, say, this is an amazing story, of how I met so and so and we did something crazy. So this, you write this and you put it up for sale, but the whole work is actually encrypted. It is encrypted and nobody can see that. They can see the description, they can see the preview, whatever the blogger chooses to show them, but they actually bid for it, and you bid in Pocketcoin for this. Ultimately, the person who won the auction gets the key to decrypt it. So ultimately what happens is the blogger, when the auction is won, the blogger automatically gets the Pocketcoin. Me, who actually bid for it, I'm going to get unique work of art or whatever, a unique story. You could think of, like, possibilities are limitless, right? It could be lots of different things that you could create, and you could, for example, I love this blogger, and my wife, let's say, really loves this blogger, and I want to, as a reader, I'll suggest to this blogger, why don't you sell, this great story, this unique story, and I'm going to buy it and I'm going to gift it to my wife. Say, look, this person that you read, you love his or her reading. Here, by the way, here's the blog that's just for you. I bought it just for you. Nobody else in the world has it. That is a completely new way for bloggers to make money. And the exclusivity is amazing. Then if I bought it, I could, for example, release it. I could say, hey, the whole world, I bought this thing from this blogger. I want to just give it to you. I want to gift it to the world. Fine, I bought it. I own it. I can do whatever I want with it. If I don't want to show it to somebody, I'm not going to show it to somebody. So if you're, obviously, if you're going to do things like you're going to steal other bloggers' stuff, there's a question right there. What if I steal other bloggers' stuff? Or, for example, you hype it up and there's nothing inside of it. You're going to be able to fool people like once maybe. But what happens on Pocketnet, you're going to get, there's also going to be a special section where, like on Amazon, which I hate, they have Amazon verified purchaser, right? This is a person who supposedly purchased that product doing a review, so it's not a fake review. Now I don't trust their verified reviews, but on Pocketnet, it's very easy to verify that this particular person with this public key actually bought an NFT from this person. So that the person who bought it, the buyer, will actually be allowed to leave a note, and people will know that this is a real person. This is not a fake. This is not FUD. This is a real person saying, hey, I paid 100 Pocketcoin. Right now it's Pocketcoin like $4 or something, $400 for this thing, and it's empty. And people would know that, oh, this Pocketnet public key with a digital signature signed this comment. In other words, we know that truly it's this person who bought something and they were fooled. What do you think that blogger is going to get next time for their exclusive NFT? Nobody's going to buy it. So you have to maintain your reputation, just like in any normal human society. So you can sell anything. I mean, you could sell a book like that. You can sell a little video. Of course, there's a limit to the size. Like, it probably cannot be over 8 gigabyte. But I think 8 gigabyte is huge. You could have videos. So 6 to 8 gigabyte will be okay. We're building a special storage mechanism. So we have blockchain, we have a companion database. We're building a special storage mechanism for these files. And to us, this is crucial. We believe that this is the way one other way bloggers will be able to support themselves. Authors will be able to support themselves. Dissidents will be able to support themselves. Whatever. I mean, it's just like you come and you give some unique value. Of course, there are other ways, but this is how it's going to work. And so this is unique. Nobody else in the world does this. You cannot do this on Ethereum. You cannot do this anywhere. Okay. And let me show you some slides, quickly go over the mechanism. This is slightly technical, but so Pocketnet posts with terms of action, terms of use, actually, sorry, metadata and actual NFT is made, the true seller can, well, you can still sell NFTs without encryption. So then they're going to be kind of like a regular NFT, but without the problems that your IPFS links can break and so on and so forth. So you'll get both. But the NFT will be encrypted using a certain key, using a cipher called AES. It's a well-accepted cipher. It's going to be encrypted. And then there are a few steps, right? In step 2, people will bid for the work. They're going to use something, a variation of something called hash time lock contracts. So the buyer will create a transaction locking the amount of pocket coin that they want to bid. So I, as a seller, I know these bids are real. You cannot fake the bid. If you want to bid 100 pocket coin, you should have 100 pocket coin, and it's going to be locked until the auction is over. So this is what a blockchain allows us to do. If a buyer wins the auction, then the pocket coin will be claimed by the seller, and there's certain things that happen cryptographically. There's a pre-image of the hash that needs to be used. So in essence, if you know of Bitcoin, there's something called the Lightning Network in Bitcoin. Okay, the Lightning Network is a set layer 2 thing that's based on the same idea. So we're using some similar mathematical concepts. Okay, who knows what Lightning Network is? Can you write like a plus in the chat? If you don't, write a minus or no. Lightning Network, do you know what it is? Okay, I think, yeah, many people. So Lightning Network is a second layer on top of Bitcoin. Yeah, so quite a few, yeah, second layer, quite a few people know it. It's a second layer on top of Bitcoin that allows you to take some Bitcoin off the blockchain and create unlimited number of transactions, and then only later settle it to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin becomes what's called settlement layer in finance. We're using it for a very different purpose, but some of the similar math and some of the similar transactions are used. Okay. Now, when the seller chooses a winner, right? Obviously, the biggest bid. It's also a hash time lock contract, and so on and so forth. And then there's some game theory stuff, and there's some math involved in the way we build it on the blockchain. Okay, so we wrote it up. Everything's open source, but this is something we invented here. And ultimately, nobody can fool anybody, because you're gonna get the pocket coin as a seller only when you release the key. And if you don't, then there's going to be repercussions for you. Okay. So the idea is that bloggers will be able to make money with NFTs, both exclusive and non-exclusive. So non-exclusive is also possible, right? Somebody wants to buy a thing that's not encrypted just to have bragging rights, but everybody else sees it. Fine. That could also be, right? For example, I'm a blogger. I'm going to make a video and I'm going to put it up for NFT, and whoever wins it is going to be listed as my main sponsor for the next, so forever when people watch this video, let's say that, some big blogger does the video on Pocketnet, and that big blogger creates an NFT. I win the NFT. Yes, everybody sees the video, but forever when they watch that video, on the top it will say, this video is sponsored by Daniel. I mean, that's also cool, right? So that's not encrypted.